Welcome to Wealth Strategies Unleashed with Concenture Wealth Management. And I'm Robert Gilliland.
And I'm Mike Alexander, Chief Investment Officer.
Thanks everyone for coming in. One of the things that a lot of times when we sit down and meet with people, especially for the first time, is what's this process?
Wait. This time I get to ask the questions. I get to ask the questions, Robert. So
don't copy what I just said.
No, when people do come in to visit with us, a lot of times they really do, they really do want to know what kind of process do you guys have? What happens when I come into a meeting? What do I need to know? What do I need to bring? What do I need to be prepared for? And so tell us a little bit about the process that we utilize here at Concenture Wealth Management.
Well, I think one of the things that really what we want to do is that we're a fiduciary. We are not about selling anything. We want to earn the right to work with people. So generally speaking, the way the conversation goes is that we just sit down, have a conversation. We'll tell you a little bit about us so you know that what we're doing and who we are. But then after that, it's really all about you. And inside of there, we want to talk about your kids. We want to talk about what do you want to do in retirement. We want to talk about how do you feel about investing. Do you want to be involved? Do you not want to be involved? We want to talk about your risk tolerance, and what happens inside of there. We want to talk about what keeps you up at night, right? If the market were to drop, if you had $1 million and it dropped to 800, would that bother you? If you had, what is risk to you, and what does that mean? I think also a question or another question that we want to uncover is: do you feel like you have enough, not enough, or more than enough to be able to reach your goals? Right? And a lot of times people are like, I think I have enough, but I don't know. Or they think, oh, I've got plenty, or no, I've got a lot of work to do. So we want to sit down and we want to kind of have those conversations.
Now, is there a particular size client that you would be entertain, or do you have a minimum? How do you think about those types of things?
Well, I think that everyone needs to go through to have a plan. Right. Generally speaking, we have the greatest flexibility at working with people who are over $500,000. But that doesn't mean that we can't help other people. And that's one of the great things about being a fiduciary and how we can go through to help people. I think the reality is that it all starts from that meeting. It all starts with a plan. So what we do is after we gather this information, we go back and it takes us 10 days or so, 10 business days or so, to go through and really dig into the assets, to dig into your goals, to dig into how do we put this together so that you can get from here to San Antonio safely and on time, right? And then from there, we get back together to go through and talk about and walk through, this is what the plan says. Here's where your probabilities of success. It's really interesting, and you probably have some thoughts on this, is that back in the 90s, when financial planning was really starting to become all the rage, what people did was they looked at simple compounding. In other words, the markets went up every single year.
They don't go up every single year?
Well, 2022 was pretty good evidence of that. So then what ends up happening, right, is then you have a down market and the plan gets destroyed. So what the process that we use is we assign a probability of success. In other words, look at what happens through 1,000 different possible market iterations. What happens if the markets go down, 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 then up, 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 down, up, 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 down. All the different possibilities to determine what's the percentage of time that we were successful. So we can go through and say, hey, congratulations, you've got a 90% probability of success. That gives us a lot of flexibility and freedom, right? We can go through and do that. And so then from there, after we build that plan, we simply give suggestions. These are the adjustments we would make. This is where this is. This is how we would go through to do that. And we leave it up to people, if they like, know, and trust us, to decide to work with us. And I think what people need to understand when they sit down with a financial advisor is that they need to, first of all, trust that financial advisor. They need to make sure that that financial advisor understands what their goals are. And the financial advisor has competency in being able to help them achieve those goals. You probably have seen stuff like that.
Sure. Curious just in terms of what kinds of questions, if I'm a potential client, and I'm thinking about hiring a financial advisor, what kind of questions should I be asking them?
Well, I think that they should be asking them kind of about what their average client is, because you don't want to work with someone that, if there are financial advisors out there that only work with people that have $100 million. Well, if you have $1 million, you don't want to work with that person because they're not going to pay a lot of attention to you. They just don't have capacity or time. You need to understand their process and the way that assets are managed. You need to understand their qualifications. You need to understand the fees. You need to understand how does this work, what you can expect. So questions around like how often are we going to get together? What's that process? So that you're very clear as to understanding, okay, we're going to sit down face to face once a year. We're going to have a second, at minimum, a phone call another time a year. We're going to have this interaction here. It all depends kind of where and what and what you actually want. What we found is that clients that after we work together, they quite frankly don't want to hear from us that much. They trust that we're working in their best interest and where that is, and so we probably over communicate so that they understand and so I think that you go to look. I would be interested. I'm going to reverse the rule here. I would be interested when it comes to methodology of investments, since you're the chief investment officer. What do you think is kind of different about the way that we manage the assets?
I think when it comes to actually managing the assets, I think the thing that we look at is, first of all, we look at investments from a holistic standpoint. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to put all of our clients in a situation where the odds of success go as high as we can possibly make them and still fit within the plan. And so I think one of the things that you'll see from us is that we're almost always under risked, if you will, to the marketplace. And the reality is we have clients that have assets. They don't want to lose them. They've spent a great deal of their lives trying to get to where they are. And so our job is to care for them. And you can't do that by being careless. Now, that's not to suggest, as you said earlier, it's not to suggest that markets only go up and investments can never go down. I think the idea is that much like a golfer, we're constantly trying to keep the ball in the fairway. We want to stay out of the rough as much as possible. We recognize that there's going to be periods of time when you're not going to do as well as the S&P 500, but by the same token, you're also not going to take the same amount of risk either. And the reality is that when you look at the arithmetic of loss, which is really, really important, is that if I lose 50% on an investment, it's going to take 100% return from that point forward just to get back to even.
Right.
And so we want to keep from those types of things happening. And I think as we've said on previous podcasts, you always hear about the person who made a lot of money taking a lot of risk. You never hear about the person who lost a lot of money taking a lot of risk. And so we're very, very mindful of that when it comes to managing money for our clients, because we want to manage money for, when we say clients, we mean families. And so that may be the patriarch and matriarch of the family, but also generations, beneath them as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we end up doing a lot is around this idea of a financial plan, around this idea of risk mitigation. I always struggle with that word. Around around this context of creating an income stream in retirement is there's a lot more that we also help out with, right? We become that counsel to clients that are thinking about moving. We become that counsel to those clients who are like, hey, I can see coming down the road, one of us is going to need assisted living. Or my parents are going to need assisted living. What do I need to do? I'm going through a divorce. What do I need to do? I lost a spouse. What are the things? There are financial things that we know that we can do in our sleep. It's that human aspect that I think is really where I think we make that difference in connecting with our clients, understanding what the goals are, understanding what their tolerance for risk, and making sure that they're able to achieve and accomplish what they want to.
One last question for you, Robert, and that is just what about resources? Obviously, financial advisor is not going to be an expert on, every aspect of planning, if you will. But certainly you have access to resources, correct? And
yeah, I mean, I think that's really, I think where we are is that a good financial advisor is going to be really good in one aspect. For us, I call it retirement planning, right? But when it comes to wills, when it comes to tax preparation, when it comes to insurance, when it comes to all the different components that come in, we have a working knowledge, which is probably better than 95% of the average Joe out there, but we're not the experts. So we have those resources that we can go and we can pull in. I mean, when it comes to investment management, that's why we have you on the team, right? To make sure you understand that owning this ETF over that ETF, or this investment over that investment, or this mutual fund over that mutual fund, and the rationale as to why as we're looking forward. And then we have all these other resources for information. And then our job, we know how to create that income stream. We know how to set the portfolio up. But then when you go in and look at deploying all that and managing, and we become the quarterback, if you will, using the football parlance, right? We become the quarterback to say, okay, we've done this. This is the next thing that we need to do, or we see this coming down the pipe. This is what we need to do.
Makes a lot of sense.
One of the things also I think is really important to talk about is kind of like investment philosophy and kind of how we go through and do this. And the way that I think that makes sense is there are a lot of places and a lot of do-it-yourself places and a lot of 800 help places that will go and say, oh, okay, you've got some money. Fill out this questionnaire. And you fill out this risk tolerance questionnaire. And it comes back and they say, oh, you know what? You should be 50% in stocks, 30% in bonds, 20% in cash. And there you go. There's your portfolio. And you're like, okay, well, they're a big company. They know my tolerance for risk. You go and you put money in there. I think what makes us different is the way that we go through to develop our strategies. And that is starting with the global macroeconomic environment, not having a source that we only can watch, but really 15, 20, 30 different sources. Go through and look at what are all of these people saying is going to happen in the global macro environment. From there, one thing that's important to do is identify those things that the outliers are saying and say, hold on, does any of this make sense? From there, you go and look at the fundamental analysis. What sort of companies do well in that macroeconomic environment? Is it this sector or that sector, or how should we do this, or where should that be? The fundamentals. Then from there, the determining point is the technicals. Where's the flow of money, right? And because what that does is that helps us protect on the downside. It may mean that we're a little bit slower getting involved, but we protect on that downside. And what ends up coming out of that funnel gives us a pretty clear picture as to how to manage the money. And it's kind of like a thermostat. When it's too hot, you turn the AC down. And when it's too cold, you turn the heat up. That helps us to determine how do we go through to actually manage this. And what it does is it allows for us, as opposed to having a static approach to investing. put the money in there. We'll talk to you in a year. You come back in a year. Everything's fine. We should leave it alone. Come back in the second year. Everything's fine. Leave it alone. Well, the reality is that your risk has shot up. The strategy and the philosophy that we have is really about being proactive and dynamic in the way that we manage, right? Because there's so many different types of stocks, so many different types of bonds, so many different. Just take international. Do you want to be in domestic? Do you want to be in developed? Do you want to be in emerging markets? And from there, how developing of markets do you want to be in, right?
Right.
And so there's a lot more that comes to that. And what ends up happening is that you end up with a portfolio or an outcome that ends up getting you 80% of the upside, but only 60% of the downside,
right.
or 40% of the downside rather. And so I think that's really a strategy of going through, especially when you're looking at creating that income stream in retirement. That's vital to have so that you can be proactive, you can be looking forward and be dynamic in the way that you manage it, nimble.
Sounds like something that might need to be monitored and reviewed from time to time. What do you think?
Okay, just a little bit. I mean, that's it. But there's a drawback to adjusting too much,
For sure.
and so you have to be very intelligent about how you manage that.
Right. So you're saying, we're never going to adjust a portfolio just because it needs to be adjusted, right? Or just for adjustment's sake.
Well, you're the CIO. I mean, you don't go and just because this went up or this went down doesn't mean it all boils back to that funnel. Did something change in the global macroeconomic environment?
Right.
Did something change fundamentally for our rationale for doing it? And are the technicals telling us that yes, we need to get out, or no?
And perhaps even more importantly, did something change with our client?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Did something change in the client? I mean, the one thing about some of these cookie cutter type approaches is that you'll see, okay, that's great that you did a plan a year ago and it told you what to put in stocks, what to put in bonds, and what to keep in cash. What does it tell you 5 years from now?
Right.
Oh, I forgot. I need to go back, and am I going to go back and redo it every year? So the idea, I think, is really to have somebody at the wheel, if you will, to help you navigate that.
That's right.
Awesome.
Good.
Appreciate the feedback.
I want to say thank you for joining us this week on Wealth Strategies Unleashed. I'm Robert Gilliland with Concenture Wealth Management, and
We'll see you next time.
all right, so let's take care of some legal stuff. As a representative of Sanctuary Securities, Inc. and an investment advisory representative of Sanctuary Security Advisors, LLC Securities, offered through Sanctuary Securities, member FINRA and SPIC. Advisory services offered through Sanctuary Advisors, LLC, an investment registered investment advisor. Concenture Wealth Management is a DBA of Sanctuary Securities and Sanctuary Advisors, LLC.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as an offer or solicitation with respect to the purchase or sale of any security. The content is developed from sources believed to be accurate. No warranty, express or implied, is made regarding the accuracy, adequacy, completeness, legality, reliability, or usefulness of any information.
Opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and are not intended as investment advice or to predict future performance. The views expressed herein are not necessarily representative of Sanctuary Securities, Inc. or Sanctuary Advisors, LLC, and should not be interpreted as investment advice.
Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit against loss in periods of declining values. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Any investment discussed may not be suitable for all investors. Investors must take their own decisions based on their specific investment objectives and financial circumstances. Consult your financial professional before making any investment decision.
No part of this communication is intended to be construed as tax or legal advice. Please discuss your specific situation with a qualified tax or legal professional.